So I'm going to get things started by asking you to imagine a world without UW-Madison. And of course, when we think about UW-Madison around here, all of us think about Babcock. Maybe not this Babcock, the ice cream that you're going to have, but of course Stephen Babcock, who in 1890 developed what at the time was a groundbreaking method for assessing the butterfat content of milk, which of course is important here in the dairy state. Babcock's discovery was a major coup for UW-Madison, became very rapidly the gold standard in the industry, so much so that many other people claim to have a Babcock butterfat test. Unfortunately, there were a lot of low quality, lesser tests out there parading around as Babcock tests because Professor Babcock did not take any steps to protect his invention. So that legacy left a major impression on another biochemist who came along a couple of decades later. Susan mentioned earlier that WRF has been in operation since 1925, which was about the time that Professor Harry Steinbach in the biochemistry department discovered a way to increase the vitamin D content of food. And this is the one discovery that every one of you has benefited from, because before this invention, the disease rickets was very prevalent and was a major source of disability in kids across the world. These are automatically advancing, apologies. Professor Steinbach's invention eradicated rickets. But as Susan mentioned this morning, rather than pocket the money himself, he and other alumni collaborated to create WRF. That collaboration really paid off. And the patented process to enrich food for vitamin D led to a number of industrial partnerships, industrial creations, and the formation of WRF. And WRF, of course, patents discoveries from UW-Madison, brings the proceeds back to invest in further research, and that evergreen cycle continues today. And a number of the inventions I'm going to talk to you about followed in that path. So a couple of decades after Steinbach's seminal discovery and the creation of WRF, another major inventor identified a product in corn cobs that was both an efficacious rat poison and a really good anticoagulant. Many of you might know the name of that product. Anybody want to any guess what that might be?
Coumadin.
Coumadin, otherwise known as? Warfarin. Now you know. So Carl Paul Link created Warfarin in 1945, adding again to this cycle of the ability to invent and reinvest. Followed in the late 50s by Wurtzer and his pill coating process, which continued for decades to be a leading pill coating process across the pharmaceutical industry. In the 70s, Fulco Belzer and James Southard collaborated to create the UW solution that you may have heard of, which revolutionized human organ transplantation. UW-Madison is still a leading transplant center, both for research and actually conducting transplants as a result of the Belzer-Southard solution. And perhaps the most famous and the most impactful in terms of research going on this campus today, protege of Harry Steinbach was his last graduate student, Hector DeLuca, who continues to operate a lab and has started companies and continued research in vitamin D. And Hector DeLuca himself is responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in research funding that continues to fuel the engine of research at UW-Madison. Of course, we never like to talk about the one that got away. And many of you may not know that Botox as a cosmetic treatment was discovered here at UW-Madison. Unfortunately, we at WRF did not think to patent anything about this process because who in their right mind would put botulinum toxin into their face? So nobody thought about that. Obviously, this has been transformational in the world. Sadly, proceeds from this major product do not benefit UW-Madison. I want to make sure to recognize another discovery, another contribution UW-Madison and WRF together made to the world, which was the passage of the Bayh-Dole Act. And seen here is Howard Bremer, who was lead counsel for WRF and was a primary author of the Bayh-Dole Act. Anybody here heard of Bayh-Dole? Bayh-Dole governs what happens to inventions that come out of universities. And it's because of Bayh-Dole that we are able to have university startups and university industry partnerships that are governed by intellectual property protection. So another contribution that came out of this university that has the potential to benefit what you do. I want to move on into the 90s now. Controversial discoveries are not a problem for the relationship that UW-Madison and WRF have. We obviously take them very seriously, And when Jamie Thompson discovered in the late 90s a method for propagating human embryonic stem cells, WRF was very supportive, patented that technology, and a number of startups from this campus and others have been able to see the light of day as a result of embryonic stem cells. Major acquisition a few years ago of one of the seminal companies that Dr. Thompson founded by Fujifilm, and they've kept their business here in Madison. So controversy comes and goes over time. Another controversial area of research has been the influenza work of Dr. Yoshikawa Oka that has also led to another startup company, and transformational new therapies for emerging influenza that will help guard against pandemics. So another area that WRF and the UW have partnered on that has really led the way in an area of major potential impact for everybody. I want to show you this as a result of Baidol and other partnerships. These are just some of the startups that have already had successful exits that UW-Madison and WRF have partnered on. CDI here I just mentioned, across the spectrum of biotech and beyond. So again, these kinds of discoveries and these kinds of partnerships have the potential to lead to productive products as well as companies. Dr. Mark Cook helped partner with UW-Madison to create a new initiative that you probably have heard about today or will, called Discovery to Products. And WRF is a lead partner in Discovery to Products, helping with another 2 or 3 dozen startups in flight right now that are working with between UW-Madison and WRF. Some of these come from, you heard this morning about the Great Lakes Bioenergy Research Center, getting the largest grant on this campus and getting that renewed. WRF has partnered with GLBRC to help launch startups and also through its accelerator program. And the new leader of the accelerator program is here. Greg, I don't know if you want to make yourself visible, to work with faculty and companies to identify ways of moving their technologies forward and making them industry ready. In addition to helping get technologies ready, WRF has also played a lead role in bricks and mortar, and I'm showing here a building that we took the lead on, which is actually right across the street, the Discovery Building, which is home to 2 research institutes, and a really inviting public space that welcomes easily 750,000 people a year to connect with one another and with research on campus, including industry partners. And so with that, we of course are always looking up to what can come in the future. So in addition to looking back, we're looking up, we're looking ahead and thinking about what kinds of partnerships we can all think about as we go through the rest of the day. So with that, I think I have about 1 minute in case there are any questions, but otherwise I'll pass the baton to Jordan Ellenberg to talk about math and food cards.